In this video, we're talking about tuning conga drums. Coming up. Hi, my name is Kevin Zahner, and if this is your first time on Rhythm Notes, please subscribe so we can help you level up your drumming today. I never tune my conga drums to specific pitches. I use 2 drums, or sometimes 3, but if I used maybe 4 or 5, I probably would have to use specific pitches. Most of the time, my tuning comes from relative intervals, and I sort of figure out what sounds good for the song. If something sounds a little weird or it's just not projecting properly, I might adjust it a little bit, but I don't go over to the keyboard and figure out what those notes are. But I do have a process, so let's get into it. My tuning process for conga drums is much like my tuning process for any drum. You want to bring down the head evenly around the shell, and you do that by tightening the tension rods. But it's not always so simple because some heads are a little bit different than others, and sometimes the drum can be a little bit temperamental. So before we get into specific techniques for tuning the drum, let's talk about the tools. So the wrench is used to turn the nuts, which tighten down the tension rods. Those nuts should move pretty freely without squeaking and without too much work to get them to move. If they are squeaking or a little bit stuck, you can add lug lube. Most LP drums come with a small bottle of lug lube. Make sure you don't put too much on though, because it'll draw in more dirt if too much of that lube is exposed, and then you could be back to squeaking and hard turning again. So one of the things that we do with conga drums is detuning. Detune your drums after you're playing. So you're gonna tune them up every time, which is why every time you play these conga drums, you're gonna tune them first. It's not often that you leave them tuned and then they stay that way. Even on the synthetic heads that are less susceptible to raising and lowering the pitches just because of the changes in moisture or temperature in the air, even the synthetic heads will change a little bit here and there. So it's important that you detune the heads, and especially when you're moving them or bringing them to a different room, and then tune them up. So when you get started with the tuning, make sure you know kind of where the drum is. Tap the head near each tension rod to get an idea of which ones are lower and which ones are higher. You want to bring up the lower ones first so that they all eventually match each other in pitch. If they match each other in pitch, we can assume that they're pulling on the head evenly, which is going to get you a better sound in the long run. Now, when you're tuning, just crank it up maybe a half or 3/4 of a turn each rod, and you can go around the drum initially until you get to a reasonable pitch before you're going to start fine-tuning the drum. If you're getting value out of this video, please hit that like button, and please share it with someone you think would also get value out of this video. To cancel out some of the overtones, sometimes I place my finger in the center of the drum and tap with the wrench or my finger near each tension rod. This will give me a better idea as to where that rod is in terms of pulling down on the head. Before you get too into tightening the lower ones, check the opposite side to make sure that they aren't way off, because sometimes the opposite end will affect the tension on the other side. So before you get into like cranking up the lower ones, check both sides and then determine which one needs to come up, and then recheck. And it's a check and recheck, check and recheck kind of process until you get everything fine-tuned and kind of in harmony with one another. When it comes to intervals, like I said, I don't use a keyboard or a tuner to bring each drum up to a specific pitch, but I do use relative intervals. if you're thinking about relative intervals and different intervals from one drum to another, focus on maybe the perfect intervals, like the perfect fourth, the perfect fifth. Those usually work the best. And if you don't know what those are, think about a song that has those intervals, like Here Comes the Bride. Here comes the bride, all dressed in white, dressed, all dressed. That's a perfect fifth. And here comes, that's a perfect fourth. Here comes the bride, all dressed in white. So you have all those intervals in there that you can work with just relatively. And I don't know what key that was in. I didn't go to the keyboard and figure it out, but that's relative pitches. The pitches were relative to one another. And you'll have maybe a different pitch for the drum in a different room. It might change a little bit, which is why you want to just kind of get it to a place that it sounds good, get the drums to a place where they sound good with each other, and then move on. Okay, because spending too much time tuning your drums, especially conga drums, can just be a waste. If you want more information about the tuning steps we've talked about today, real conga heads versus synthetic conga heads, I'll put a link in the description below to an article on rhythmnotes.net. Like anything, the more you tune your conga drums and the more you follow these steps that I've shown you, the better you'll get at it, and it'll just be second nature. And sometimes it'll be good, and sometimes it'll be challenging. In different drums and different heads and different rooms and different climates and environments will pose different issues that you just have to work through. Work through them one step at a time, work through them calmly, and at the end of the day, play good music, play your drums well. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't get the perfect tuning every time. But this is the way you can guarantee that it gets as good as it can on that day, for sure. If you like this video and you want to watch more, check out this one suggested to you by YouTube, and check out this one suggested to you by Rhythm Notes. Please subscribe so we can help you level up your drumming today, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.